Well, the Doctor may not like goodbyes, but Moffat sure does. Okay, folks, here we are. We have arrived at the exit from the show for Amy and Rory. Angels Take Manhattan. This one is a really sort of odd mix. So here's what it has going for it. It is incredibly heartfelt. The emotional resonance it has, for me, feels very well earned, not only in the episode itself, but also because of the groundwork laid by the episodes leading up to it in this series. I've knocked on Series 7 before for being sort of split in half and disjointed, and I stand by that, but I will say, in terms of building up specifically to the exit of Amy and Rory, good work was done in the episodes that preceded this, even though I don't especially love those episodes in and of themselves. They did set up things very well for this piece. So that works quite well. It's atmospheric, it's tense, it's got a really good sense of pace. River's back. I do enjoy River quite a bit. I find some of the timey-wiminess to be very clever, but also stick a pin in that. We'll come back to that in just a little bit. The performances are really good, honestly, from everybody. Rewatching this, I'd forgotten how good River was in this, especially towards the end at the actual sort of farewell. But again, I will come back to that. And yet, despite all this, man, this episode doesn't make a lick of sense. Like, it's preposterous. Now, look, first off, I'm actually totally fine with Doctor Who as a show having somewhat malleable or inconsistent time travel rules. I'm fine with that, and I will always be fine with that, because I don't feel like it does the show any favors to lock down that this is the only way that time travel works. So I am totally cool with the idea of sometimes events are fixed, sometimes they're not. Sometimes a change can be catastrophic, sometimes a change doesn't matter in the slightest. I am totally down with that kind of malleability because it frees the show up to tell a lot of different stories. What I do ask, however, is that any given episode be consistent in which set of rules it's operating under. And this one, oh boy, Moffat just breaks all his own rules that he has set up not only for the Weeping Angels, but also for time travel in this specific episode. Huge swaths of the plot pin themselves on the fact that once you know the future, you cannot change it. It is fixed and there's nothing you can do. Oh, except look at that, we did change it, except, oh no, wait, maybe we kind of didn't, except we did, but now we didn't, but now they're back and we can't go back. Make up your freaking mind. It really does feel like he got very stuck in with with the admitted cleverness of the Weeping Angels and the idea of the building full of batteries. They just keep zapping them back in time to that same loop and just keep feeding off them. That's actually a pretty neat idea and also kind of horrifying. That's a nice, scary idea for the Angels. But then the only way to beat them once they see old Rory is to break all the rules. But then at the very end, still have things happen the way they're supposed to. Maybe, kind of, sort of. Again, I don't have a problem with the show on a grand scale being wishy-washy and indeterminate with how it handles time travel, but you can't be this all over the shop in a single episode. And, I mean, especially with the Weeping Angels, because the Weeping Angels, by their nature, lend themselves to the harder set of rules. That's kind of what they were built to do. So, the malleability of the idea of, we can break all this if we cause a paradox, but like the whole idea with paradoxes is you're supposed to not be able to do them at all. I take that back, because Doctor Who has done both. They've done, you're not supposed to be able to do them at all, and they've done, you can do them, but they're incredibly dangerous. But more often than not, I feel like Doctor Who has erred on the side of when you try to create a paradox, it just doesn't work. But here they can, because it's Amy and Rory. And I say that like a little bit sarcastically as if that's a dumb reason, but at the same time, I do honestly really love the moment where they're trying to figure out how can we possibly get him out of here. We've just seen him die, and Amy just takes Rory's hand and says, I won't let them take him. I love that because I love Amy and I love her and Rory together. So emotionally, all the beats are correct in this. It's just the logistical knots that it ties itself into. It doesn't know how to get out of without cheating. Oh, and seriously, the image of the Statue of Liberty as a weeping angel is stupid on its face. Like, here's the thing. I would love to have seen that as like a piece of concept art for something that it didn't do. Or a piece of fan art. That'd be really neat. But in a story, it makes zero freaking sense. It freezes whenever people look at it. And you're telling me that in New York, the city that never sleeps, this thing walks down the street. You can hear its steps. Kung, kung, kung. Nobody looks out their window and goes, oh my God, it's the Statue of Liberty. And then like a bunch of people stick their heads out. Now the thing's stuck there for friggin' ever because everyone's staring at it. Like, I get why the idea of the visual of the Statue of Liberty as an angel was like cool, but it's really dumb. It's really stupid if you stop and think about it for any more than 2 seconds. And yeah, that is the biggest leap, the biggest, like, what the heck? And there are a lot of other smaller ones. There's a line that River has about they seem to have taken over nearly every statue in New York, which is weird, because we've never had the idea that the angels take over existing statues, only that they pass themselves off as statues. So that was a little bit of a weird, basically a fix-it line. Toss that in to try and explain some of this, even though we can't possibly explain the Statue of Liberty thing. But at the same time, even though I say that, I do like that in many ways this story is paying off the tease at the end of Blink, where it has all these shots of all these statues that are real statues in the world that makes you wonder, wait a minute. And I kind of like that they're now finally paying that off by having not just the classic weeping angels that we know, but the little cherubs, which I thought that was a neat idea. I thought they were creepy. I love the image of the one frozen and blows out the match. That was great. So it keeps having these ideas with parts that I'm like, nice, and then other parts of that same idea where I'm like, what? But that's the thing. The logistics are a mess. But honestly, emotionally, I do think this episode works very, very well. It does not lose sight of the lesson that has been learned repeatedly and repeatedly reinforced, that Amy and Rory are in this together, and they will be. Each of them will give up whatever they have to be with or save the other. And we see that reiterated again multiple times in this episode. So that was right. It felt very appropriate that Amy says goodbye to the doctor so that she could be with Rory, because that is a choice she has made repeatedly. And so that is the choice that she had to make again now. I really like in the graveyard how the doctor at this point just kind of can't cope. She's going, no, don't do this. And River recognizing this is what is right for her and unselfishly encouraging Amy to go and be with Rory, because River understands that that's the choice she has to make. Whereas the doctor selfishly just doesn't want that to happen. He doesn't like endings. He doesn't like goodbyes. And I do also like the idea that he tears the last page out of a book, but then has to run back and get it again so that he can get Amy's passing message to him. I thought that was really nice and really sweet. And like I said, I'd forgotten how good River was in this. She has her usual witty thing. She has good flirty banter with the doctor, but she's got some good emotional beats when she's talking to Amy. I mean, like, don't let him know how much this hurts and don't let him see you age. You get that melancholy in her performance that I love when that sneaks in under all the fun with River. And again, what she did in the graveyard was great, but also just that emotional link between Amy and the doctor and the pain of watching it get severed is sold really, really well. Karen Gillan knocks it out of the park, and Matt Smith does very good work as well. But I do think Karen Gillan is carrying this scene pretty much on her shoulders, and it really, really works. So The Angels Take Manhattan is an odd mix of emotional awesomeness, which is funny because I see so many people criticize Moffat for not being able to tell good emotional stories or good character stories. Like, this is a great emotional story. The logistics are nuts and don't work at all, which people also say was Moffat's strong suit. So, like, this is an episode I'm going to, like, pin in my brain to point out, like, okay, you people who say he only is interested in seamless plot mechanics and doesn't do emotions, like, you rewatched Angels in Manhattan lately, because that's a complete inverse of what you say. That having been said, I do actually agree with that as a broad sentiment. But never let it be said that he is either incapable of displaying good, proper, well-earned emotions with characters, nor is he incapable of completely screwing up the logistics. He can swing in either direction, even though generally that is a correct assessment. He favors the logic puzzles over the emotional resonance. But here is flipped on its head, and I do enjoy it, despite my niggles. It's one of those things where you kind of have to set the logistics aside and just let it wash over you, because otherwise you can nitpick this thing to death. Angels in Manhattan, or Take Manhattan. I forget which one it is now. Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Bunch of stuff to do. Like, subscribe. It helps me out in the algorithm, which seems to be iffy with me lately. Although it is with a lot of people, so it's not like it's targeted or anything. But you know how it is. So share this around. That's immensely appreciated. I have a Patreon if you want to help me out that way as well. That's even more appreciated. But you don't have to do any of that, because end of the day, you're the council. I'm just running the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned.